Ron and Brian podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
And good evening, everybody. It's Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock, and it's time for episode 247 of the Ron and Brian podcast. Just a few weeks away from that magical episode 250. Oh, stop. Brian, how are you this evening, my friend? You're looking good.
Listen, I'm feeling good. I don't know if I'm feeling a little heavy. You know, I'm feeling, I'm not feeling my best. I feel like I've put on some weight recently. I don't know if you can you see it here?
You look about roughly 6 pounds heavier.
That's right, people. The Ron and Brian Championship belt has made its way into my corporate housing digs. Behold.
Looks like you even put a little polish on it.
You know, let's just say some upgrades were liberally handed out.
Understood. Very nice.
But if it'll make you feel better, Ron, your photo still adorns it.
Well, you had mentioned you might scrape it off, and that would have hurt. So I'm glad you left it on there.
No, it's still there for the world to be reminded that, for there to be a 51, there must be a 49. Therefore,
must be balance in all things.
Your face will always be there, the yin to my yang.
All right. Well, let's get things moving in this episode. It's time for Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the Week.
Sláinte.
Who's?
Drink of the Week. Drink of the Week.
All right, Brian, what are you drinking this week, my friend?
Harp Lager.
Making a return.
Harp Lager. I haven't had one of these in a while. Look at that beautiful color. Ooh. You may ask yourself, Brian, where's Harp Lager from? It's from Ireland. And not only is it from Ireland, but it's also rich golden Pilsner style lager. So it's not just any lager.
No.
It has an aroma filled with mild hop bitterness and subtle malts. Its profile is characterized by this hop bitterness, along with faint hints of citrus fruits. A slightly malty sweetness in the finish leads to an overall balanced brew with a refreshing hoppy taste coming in at 5% ABV. Here is my drink of the week, and that is Harp Lager.
Take a sip, Brian. Let us know what you think.
Oh, that's good.
Nice.
Oh, that's damn good. I am a fan of lagers. I always will be.
One thing we've always said about you. IPAs not as much, but lagers you are fairly consistent with.
I do enjoy a good lager. Ron,
yes.
Can I ask you a question?
As always.
What beverage have you brought to the table?
So this week I have brought from Brewdog, I have brought their Clockwork Tangerine. This is a session IPA with natural flavors, a fully automated sessionable IPA infused with tangerine, perfectly timed delivery of juicy citrus with notes of mellow tropical fruits, followed by subtle notes of caramel and toasted malt, all wrapped up in a medium-bodied ale. A director's cut for the 21st century Clockwork Tangerine. IPA precision for the people, clocking in at 4.5%. A very crushable IPA. Looking very citrusy. Let's
thick.
Find out.
That is a thick beer. You can't even see through that.
That is tasty. I'm not going to lie.
Walk me through, Ron. What are the flavor profiles that you're experiencing right now?
I'm getting the malt. I'm getting the citrus. Not getting as much of the caramel as you would think. Not too hoppy either, which I'm not a fan of overly hoppy IPAs. So this is tasty. I enjoy it.
All right. And you know what? It makes me happy to know that you have a beer that makes you happy.
Well, I'm happy when you're happy. But sometimes, sometimes we're not happy, and that's when it's time for Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
All right, Brian, what's bothering you this week?
This one's going to be oddly specific, and I don't really know that I have a lot to complain about. But
Okay.
looking back up on my week, there was just one moment where I was truly disappointed in life and frustrated with the current offerings that this existence has to offer. Teleconference doctor appointments.
Okay.
I know that the pandemic is officially over. I know that Joe Biden has signed off on the paperwork.
Right.
Dr. Fauci has gone back to his underground lair. And one of the things that seems to have continued is online doctor appointments. I had one earlier this week with a specialist. I don't want to say which specialist, because frankly, there are HIPAA rules that need to be respected
Sure.
and honored at the same time. And we're not just talking about mine. Anywho, I did the appointment from work, scheduled during my lunch hour. And I could not wait for it to be over. Have decided I will never do that again, because
Okay.
I spent the entire time with the window minimized, and basically spent the 30 minutes staring at my Outlook with emails that needed to be responded to that I was not responding to. And I really got nothing out of the doctor's appointment.
Was that perhaps more due to your lack of focus? I mean, can you really blame the doctor?
No, but if I were in person, I would not have been distracted by my work, my office, things on my desk. At one point, I even vacuumed up dust on my desk.
All right, fair enough. Well,
that is my beef of the week.
All right, I guess a minor beef, but specific, so that's okay.
Ron?
Yes.
What's bugging you?
So what's bothering me this week, Brian, is home goods. I know you're familiar with home goods. You
Sure.
have, not just in your corporate apartment, but in your home apartment, you have quite the collection of live, laugh, love paraphernalia.
Sure.
So my wife loves home goods, and my beef with home goods is, unlike other stores, like you go to Target and the stuff you have at one Target is the same stuff you have at pretty much every other Target you have out there.
Sure.
But with home goods, you can have different stuff at each and every store. Meaning, when we go to one Home Goods and there's not enough tchotchkes and bric-a-brac and whatever else you would purchase at a Home Goods, you then need to drive a half hour to another Home Goods to see what various items they have there. And God forbid you don't buy that item when you're there, because odds are when you go back, they're not going to have it and they're not going to get any more in. So it's just makes for a very long day of shopping.
How many Home Goods did we visit?
Well, it wasn't just the Home Goods. It was, it's the Marshalls, it's the TJ Maxx, it's the At Home, it's the whole family of stores.
Are they all owned by the same corporation or different
Yes,
ones?
I believe they're all the same.
Ooh, that's where I feel like there needs to be an acknowledgement by society that we need to have a waiting room for men at these stores where men can sit down. Maybe you have a flat screen up on the wall where they're playing a sporting event by a local team, and some couches where men can sit down on. I just think that those stores, if they wanted to increase their sales, there should be a place where uninterested shoppers would be allowed to pass the time. Because what it actually does is it increases the amount of time that the interested shopper gets to spend shopping.
Right.
Because I know if you drag me into a Home Goods, I would say within 4.5 minutes, I will start complaining and try to speed up the visit to a home goods store.
Yeah, the only part of Home Goods I like is kind of the gourmet kitchen area where I can shop for
You
some
don't say. You don't say.
where I can
Shocker.
where I can shop for some, some coffee. I got a good deal on 2 pounds of coffee beans today.
Mhm.
Found a jar of a very elusive strawberry rhubarb jam that I've been finding at Home Goods, which I like. But yeah, that takes about 5 minutes, and then it's like,
Right.
all right, can we go look at a flower pot that looks slightly like the flower pot you didn't buy at the last Home Goods, only this one has a divot at the top instead of the bottom. So
Sure.
obviously that one's much more feng shui for what we're trying to
Mhm.
achieve here.
And how many decorative pillows did you look at over the weekend?
Listen, when you come to visit very shortly,
Mhm.
you will not recognize the house anymore.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. It has been way too long.
It has been. I won't say whose fault it is that it's been way too long, but
It's my fault.
yeah.
I take full responsibility. An invitation was extended, and unfortunately, I bad calendar management struck again. However, if you guys remember, I did make my New Year's resolution to be better at my calendar management, and I think I've been pretty good so far this year.
So far, I think you've been doing all right.
Yeah.
A bigger question to ask you, Brian. What are you watching?
Ooh. Okay. So, first off, Chris Rock, return to Netflix or return to comedy specials.
Live stand up? I don't know.
Selective Outrage was the name of his recent tour. He was in Baltimore, Maryland yesterday,
Yes.
I believe, and shot his new special, Selective Outrage. A little twist here. It was hold on. William Esquire is asking for spoilers here, and he's saying that he wants them free. He wants me to give him free spoilers.
Nice.
Okay, I'm not going to charge you for these free spoilers. But he is I just love the fact that right now William Esquire is watching this. He also has AEW on a second
Revolution.
screen
Yep, he does.
because the pay-per-view is on, and he's debating whether he should turn the sound off on this show so that he does not get any spoilers on the show. But we're not going to charge for spoilers here. So he did his special, and what I found most interesting was how similar it was to the set he did at Radio City Music Hall last fall when I took the lady to see him. Very similar.
Okay.
The chunks, the bits. He does a section, obviously, selective outrage. So he talks about woke culture. He talks about the victimization that society has embraced. He does a bit about being a father. Obviously, he addresses the Will Smith Oscar fiasco. Is it safe to call that a fiasco?
I would think so, yes.
Okay, so he hits all those things almost word for word in certain sections. It was exactly what we had seen when he had performed live. I was expecting it to be a little different. I guess I was expecting it to be slightly. I thought he would have added new material
Right.
or swapped out stuff. No, this was pretty much the same episode, and I think he did about 90 minutes. Most of the comedy shows right now are coming in around 50, 60 minutes. No, he did an hour and a half, solid. I didn't find it as funny as I remembered what my expectations of a Chris Rock, special are supposed to be. My personal thoughts. You watched some of it. What did you walk away with?
I watched the first hour of it before I tapped out. I mean, not only would I say selective outrage, but I would say selective humor. I mean, there were some parts that were funny. I don't know what it was about it that just didn't hit, but it's like, I think the Kardashian bit was very funny. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
that I found was humorous.
Mm-hmm.
Him talking about how he's paid for more abortions and more, college educations than anybody out there. I mean, there was some
Mm-hmm.
stuff that was funny. It wasn't as kind of hard hitting and edgy as
Mm-hmm.
some of his older material was.
I actually found his delivery annoying. And I don't know if
I would
annoying
agree with you.
is the right word. Distracting,
Right.
because he does have this very much preacher like delivery where he'll say something and then repeat it 2 or 3 more times before he goes into his bit. So he was just like, and that's not what I said about her. That's not what I
Right.
said about her. That's not what I said about her.
Yeah, his delivery
Because, and then he
seems to
goes into the
have,
bit like,
yeah.
just say it once and then move on. We all heard you. Like you are literally the only person on stage with the microphone. Everybody is in the audience. There's no need to repeat yourself 3 times.
It's like the kid in class that had needed a 500 word essay, so it repeated themselves a few times. Like the delivery definitely was not great. Again, probably could have
Yeah.
brought it in under an hour if
Mhm.
it wasn't the repetition.
Yeah, that was one thing that I found very distracting, and it definitely impeded my ability to find stuff funny because I was mentally in another place. I suddenly was noticing what his delivery was rather than the words and the content that he was offering up.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was something that just and I do want to agree. It's not quite annoying, but distracting almost. Like
Yeah,
kind of like you were waiting for the setup of a huge punchline that kind of
hmm
never came.
right. What are you watching?
So and I think I turned you onto this as well. I started watching the new Korean documentary on Netflix called "In the Name of God: A Holy Betrayal." It's a documentary on 4 Korean religious leaders.
Hmm.
Actually, the church had attempted to stop the release of this documentary. Netflix was
Hmm.
able to beat an injunction in the court system. So it is an 8-part series. I have just gotten through the first episode. I know you mentioned you got to episode 4. The first portion of the documentary deals with Jong Mong Suk, who is part of the JMS or Jesus Morning Star Church, and I think you would have to say, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. The first 5 minutes of the first episode are probably some of the cringiest starts of a documentary that I've ever seen. Like it does not they like it doesn't like normally with a documentary they'll ease into the subject matter. Like this, it deals with these Korean religious leaders sexually assaulting female members of the church, and
The first, yeah,
it
the first.
starts at 10. Like it
Ooh,
doesn't ramp
yeah.
you up. It hits you right off the bat with taped conversations of this Jung Myung Suk basically raping a parishioner.
Follower.
Yeah.
Yes. The first 4 episodes of this 8-part documentary are all about this one guy and his church, which I believe had a couple 100,000 followers. Um, he basically, and this is the part where it's shocking. And I don't know if William Esquire wants some spoilers on this or not, because he did. Oh, he
Oh,
also doesn't want me to spoil this one again. God damn it, William Esquire, controlling the show. I don't understand how. But basically, this guy creates this religion, somehow does some funky math, which proves that he is the Messiah. And I don't know what it is about the society there, but it has always attracted, or I don't want to say always attracted, but as long as I've been conscious about the world that I've lived in, I'm always hearing stories about different small religions that are sprouting out of there. I mean, we remember the Moonies back in the '80s,
right.
who really had made a lot of headway into American society. Still do. I believe they own one of the major newspapers down in Washington. Not the
No, I know which one you're talking about. I can't think of the name
not
now.
the Sun, not the Washington Sun or the Washington Globe, or it's not the Post. We know
No.
that a different cult leader owns the Washington Post,
Correct.
but basically he starts this church, and right off the bat, he basically narrows his focus on the attractive female parishioners, and basically, requests one-on-one time. He, basically has, quote unquote, brainwashed these his followers into believing that he himself is the Messiah. He himself is in line with God himself. And basically just gets these poor women in a one-on-one room and just basically rapes them. And the thing about this show is, like you said, it starts off with an audio tape that one of the women had made, because she had been repeatedly raped by this guy. So it doesn't ever lessen.
Right.
And the worst part is that as this goes on, you really start wondering what like how fucked up people can get mentally in these religious organizations, because this guy was arrested for sexually assaulting his parishioners. This man went to trial, was found guilty. This man went to prison and had female parishioners going to visit him while he was promising them that he was going to be preaching to them and counseling them on their path to God, and et cetera, et cetera. And then comes out of prison after, I think he did 10 years.
Yes.
Comes out and then immediately rapes these women.
Starts doing it again.
And they're interviewed being shocked because they didn't believe that he was a rapist, that they thought he was just being persecuted by the evil government of Korea. And, meanwhile, he's wearing an ankle monitor. He's wearing an ankle bracelet,
Right.
because, so literally this guy is getting naked, wearing an ankle bracelet, and his parishioners are like, no, he's not a rapist. He did nothing wrong. And then, I cannot believe that he was, he had his hand in my underwear. I'm like, oh my God, how did you not know? None of these people, keep in mind, this shit happened in the 1990s into the 2000s. The internet existed. I understand if they're living in a country where, like Iran, or as you like to pronounce it, Iran, where the internet is censored, where you would not have been able to get this information. But this guy was, doing this during the internet age. A simple Google search
Would have found out
of
what
his
was
name
going
would
on.
have. Absolutely. And they're like, oh, I can't believe he did it. And it's hard as a cynical person to, you feel bad for these women. Like, this man deserves the most horrific death. There's no doubt about that. There's no arguing. He could be, dropped into a burning, boiling vat of oil, and it still isn't like the deserving death that he should have. But you also sit there and you watch these women who are just, coming into the picture years after these charges and the trial and the imprisonment, and it's like, they how do you not suspect it? How do you not sit there and say, this isn't the religion for me. I'm gonna go looking for a different one, because it's not as if he's the only religion in town.
Right. No, obviously there's multiple religions, unfortunately, as there are 3 other pastor stories that are going to be told, similar issues in other churches in Korea, it would seem.
If you find the and also keep in mind, they really never take their foot off the brake when it comes to the cringe factor, because they play tons of audio cassettes of this guy raping. Horrible human being. How this continue? The next story is and I got like 5 minutes into the episode, and then I said to myself, I need to turn this off because I have to focus on the Ron and Brian podcast and prepare myself. The next story is a woman-led religious organization in Korea, where 37 members of the religion were found dead in the attic space of a building that the church owns. Is it suicide? Is it murder? I have no idea yet, but I will be watching this.
All right. Did you start? I have not yet. Did you start watching the new season of The Mandalorian?
Yeah, I wonder how much I can tell. Should I tell exactly what happens in the episode, or should I? Fucking
Spoiler
William,
free
man.
review.
Spoiler-free reveal.
Well, let me
Okay,
just ask this.
Yeah.
Is it the same premise where every episode is, we got to go somewhere, but wait, we need this problem solved on this random planet you're visiting. Can you help us out?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. The episode 1, and I'm not going to go into the specifics. Episode 1 ends with the Mandalorian with Baby Yoda in the back, getting into his starship or whatnot, saying to somebody, "I'd really like to stay, but I have to go to this planet and do something." And then he takes off, and it was at that moment that I was just like, "Ah, son of a bitch! They're just going to do the same fucking format that they've done in the first 2 seasons, which is Mandalorian starts off with an objective, and then he has to go from one space system to another space system. Because everyone's just like, I'd really like to help you, but first you're going to have to take on these people that are harassing my people."
Well, all right. Well, if you're not watching that Pedro Pascal show, are you watching? Are you also watching The Last of Us on HBO Max?
I have not caught up on that yet, but I
Might
want to.
be
I even went so far as to put 2 episodes of it on my phone to watch on the
might
subways, but I have
might be
not.
the best show on TV right now.
Really?
I'd be willing to go out there and say, and a lot of people aren't watching it because they're not into like the whole zombie genre, but I think
Mhm.
that's just really, it's not the main part of the story. And there's just some really great writing, really great acting, really great cinema taking place in these episodes.
What about the homosexual storyline with Nick Offerman? You've been raving to me about that throughout the entire. I mean, the texts that I've got from you on Sunday nights when you watch the episode, it's like, oh my God, they're kissing,
Well, that was
what a
just one
hunk,
episode. That was
stud, muffin.
that was just episode 3, I believe.
Oh,
The
not like you memorized it or anything.
But the other episodes have been just as good. I mean, it
Okay.
is a great show. And then I also, movie wise, this week I watched the 2022 psychological thriller Alice Darling, starring what the hell's her name, Anna Kendrick. It was not really a thriller or psychological. The plot is Anna Kendrick plays Alice. She is in a psychologically abusive relationship with her boyfriend, she goes on a vacation with some friends that try to help her out. Just not great. Like the movie was only an hour and a half, and it still felt
Okay.
like it dragged.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
So I don't know. I don't know that I would recommend it.
Rotten Tomatoes has it 46% on the audience score. Audience, what a great audience. However, 83% on the thermometer. We'll call it the thermometer. Yeah,
All right.
83% of the thermometer.
Yeah, I was not a fan. So that's all I got to say about that.
Okay,
But
interesting.
definitely, I want to hear your take on The Last of Us. I'd be curious to watch a couple episodes and then get back to us.
I'm not going to lie. I was hesitant when it first came out simply because I was so burnt out on the zombie storyline.
Right.
I was a fan. I was a very loyal fan of The Walking Dead, but they lost my trust. There were only so many times that Glenn could get caught underneath a car, or like how many episodes ended when Glenn was in somehow like just trapped by zombies, and then we went to the next episode, and lo and behold, Glenn's alive.
Glenn's alive.
And then it just became like, I get it. This is what you guys are just dragging this fucking thing out. So I got off the zombie bandwagon. This show came out, and listen, I'll be the first to admit it. I tend to be rash in first judgments, and I read a quick storyline on it. I was just like, oh, it's a zombie show, and I just said I'm passing on this one. But it seems like I made a wrong decision.
Possibly. So, Brian, what's your story of the week? We always pick a couple of stories that we want to make sure that we get to during the show. What's your story of the week this week, Brian?
My first story that I put up there was not good enough. It was, you know what? It's not even important what that story is. The important story that I would like to bring to the table here is if we could go out to Roosevelt, New Jersey. You're going to say, where the hell is Roosevelt, New Jersey? And I'm going to say, ask Billy, because I have no idea. However, in Roosevelt, New Jersey is a woman who blew her home up, filled with cats. She was in the process of being evicted, and there were police officers that were there to serve her with an eviction notice. State police officers, if I am not correct. Do we have a photo of the house?
There we do.
There we look at that beauty. Anyway, she was in the house. The state police officers, the troopers, if you would, basically were trying to make contact with her. She was refusing to let them in, repeatedly saying that nobody was going to take her or her cats. Things escalated a bit. She threatened that if they did not leave, she was going to turn the gas on in her stove and she was going to blow the house up. At this point, the police did not know whether to take her seriously or not, so they continued to try to make contact with her. Lo and behold, she blew the fucking house up.
As we can see here by the fire of the house.
Yeah. It's not every day that you can point to the trash garbage that is the state of New Jersey. However, this is just one of those opportunities when I can sit there and say, pay your rent. And if you can't pay your rent, move someplace where you can pay your rent. Here we go. Roosevelt, New Jersey. See, I knew William Esquire was going to know where it is. He is the encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to the state of New Jersey. Why is his face larger than mine right now?
I don't know.
I feel like you made I feel like as part of your last act as 51% owner, you increase the size of the viewer comments. Roosevelt, New Jersey, slightly north of 195, so it falls in the central New Jersey region, which I believe is where William Esquire is from. He is a proud resident of central New Jersey. I wonder if he is a neighbor of hers, but I digress. So the story here is a woman with a house full of cats who did not pay her rent decides to blow up the house with her in it. Obviously, she's dead. And the cats were fried. So
yeah, unfortunately, she killed off a lot of the cats too.
Yeah, so this is really a tragic story that I am somehow making light of. Ron?
Yes.
What story is your favorite of the week?
So it's tough to get worse than a woman blowing herself up and killing a bunch of innocent cats, but I feel like this next one did. This coming from overseas. This is about a missing socialite who they found her missing skull in a pot of soup this past week. So this is the story of heiress and model Abby Choi Tin Fung. She is a 28-year-old socialite and mother of 4. She went missing about a week ago. And apparently now her ex-husband and 3 members of his family have been arrested and charged in connection with her murder. They found her dismembered legs in a refrigerator and her belongings, including credit cards and an ID card, at a village house 3 days after she failed to pick up her child from school. Officers collected evidence, including a meat grinder and cleavers, an electric saw, black raincoats, gloves, face shields, and 2 pots containing what were later confirmed to be human tissue.
Also, recently seen was Sunny Red. Was also somehow in her. You didn't get the Donnie Brasco reference.
Sorry, I missed that one.
Fucking hey! Made a solid Donnie Brasco reference. I assume you saw the movie Donnie Brasco.
It's been a while. I don't.
Okay, don't you remember the scene where Donnie Brasco and Lefty are chopping up the bodies in the basement?
Right.
Sunny Red was the guy they were chopping up.
All right. Well, I don't remember the name. I'm sorry.
Damn you.
Choi's ex-husband, Alex Kwan, was arrested at a pier where he was trying to flee the city by boat, carrying $64,000 in cash and Patek Philippe watches worth more than $510,000. His brother also arrested, charged with 1 count of murder. Her ex-mother-in-law, who was allegedly aware of the plot, was charged with perverting the course of justice. Apparently, all having to do with money.
From what I heard on TikTok, which we know it has to be true, was that she was going through a divorce with this guy, and apparently she was from a fantastically wealthy company.
Oh yeah,
A family. The guy she married was not from a wealthy family, so when they got married, she bought a house for this guy and his family to live in. However, she did not give the ownership of the home to the family. She basically just bought them a house and was letting them stay in there. The divorce goes through. She lets him know that she is going to be evicting the family, that they have to move out of her house. And the way that they decided to ensure that they didn't have to move out of the house was by killing her and chopping up her body in the hopes that it wouldn't be found so they could continue to stay in the family. That is why everybody in that family is getting arrested, because they were all involved in it. Allegedly.
Crazy stories again this week.
But I feel like they were life affirming.
Yeah.
Quite the opposite, because both heroines of our story ended up dead. So I don't know that you could say that they were both uplifting. I apologize.
It's all right. We do have some stories, but I know you also had a bit which we haven't done in quite a while. I know you wanted to do a lightning round.
I'm going to get another beer while you do that. Oh, talk amongst yourself, Ron.
All right. Well, as we will at times do, we will put together a rapid fire list of questions. One of us for the other to answer. One of Brian's first acts as 51% owner and title belt possessor said that he reached out to me and said, Ron, I want to do a lightning round with you. And I said, of course. So,
okay.
Are we ready for the lightning round?
We were born ready, Ron.
All right.
Okay, so we're calling this the either or edition.
Okay.
So I am going to read to you either two names, two locations, two identities. And what you are going to have to do is answer me and then tell me what your justification was.
Okay.
Make it very simple. Here's the first one. There's 15 of them. Can go very fast.
That's a lot.
No. This will go very fast. Here we go. Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert?
Oof.
Lightning round, Ron.
I'd go Lauren Boebert.
On what justification?
She, at times, is slightly less annoying.
All right. Arena football or XFL?
Got to go arena football. 50-yard indoor war on the floor. So many good memories, you and I, with arena football.
Some of my best. Speaking of some of my best memories, Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby?
Oof. I mean, I guess you have to go Bill Cosby because technically he's acquitted.
Subway or Quiznos?
I mean, I would go Subway. I'm a sucker for a Subway melt.
All right. The New York Yankees or Eternal Salvation?
Yankees.
Yankees. Good, man. Love that.
Can't put a price on things like that.
Can you beat Ron or can you beat Brian?
Can you beat Brian? That's the newest, hottest game out there.
On our Patreon, you guys have to join us. Avocado oil or grapeseed oil?
Avocado oil, between those two, yes.
And is that because of the smoking point?
Well, I mean, it does have a decent smoking point. Just prefer the flavor, too.
Okay. JRVP or R&B?
JRVP.
A little hurt there. Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity?
Got to go Sean Hannity with that one. Again, slightly less annoying at times.
All righty. Prince Harry or Prince William?
Prince Harry. He's got a full head of hair. Look at that head of hair, Brian. You think I could go with a guy with that hairline?
Yeah, but I thought the victimization would be something that would turn you off.
I mean, I think the supporting of the colonialization of the royal family kind of is a bummer too.
A little bit of a turnoff.
Yeah.
Here's one. Train derailments or plane crashes?
I'll go train derailments. Typically fewer fatalities there.
Much worse ecological disasters.
Well, it's a trade-off.
Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis?
I mean, you got to go Donald Trump just for the entertainment factor.
Okay. I'm a little disappointed I've not heard one lightning noise during this.
Oh, well, you know what? Matt fell asleep. Hold on a second.
I can tell that's a lie because when you're on cocaine, you never fall asleep. Disneyland or Disney World?
I mean, I've only been to Disneyland, so I guess I got to go with that one.
Chat GPT or deep fake videos?
Deep fake videos.
Interesting. Didn't realize you were into that type of porn. And last but not least, 51% or 49%?
There are a lot of ways to look at this, but I was speaking with Gwyneth Paltrow the other day. I'm an investor in Goop, and she really knows how to put things in perspective. And she said to me, "Ron, 49 is the new 51." So I got to go with 49%.
I'll catch lightning in a bottle and then cram that bottle straight up your ass.
Where did we get that from?
I have no idea.
I love that one. Straight up your ass. That's it. Welcome. And I thank you for participating in Lightning Round Either or Edition.
That was a good one. I mean, I feel like you kind of mailed it in a little bit, but not too bad. I know. I disrespect.
Wow. You think I mailed it in?
I feel
simply
like
because okay, you can't compare a Lightning Edition to a Can You Beat Ron. Can You Beat Ron requires hours of preparation. Lightning Round should not require hours of preparation.
And I guess the fact that you did a lightning round just 1 week after you did a Can You Beat Ron, you must be pretty much spent at this point.
Not at all. I told you, 2023 is the year that I am bringing it.
All right.
I called it in the beginning of January. I proved it on February 5th, and I've proved it every week after.
All right.
February 5th, 12th, or was it the 19th?
I think it was the 12th, actually.
All right, close.
So,
the fact that it was a Sunday, I mean, just give me
it was one of the 3 days that you threw out there. Also this week, Alex Murdaugh found guilty and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences for the killing of his wife and son. Jury only was out 3 hours deliberating. According to one juror, they actually only ended up needing to deliberate for 45 minutes before voting unanimously to find him guilty. Brian, did any of this surprise you?
Yeah, I actually was surprised he was found guilty.
Really?
I felt that there was a lot of circumstantial evidence. I felt that what was the show that we recently watched about him? I think it was on Hulu. We did not watch the Netflix show on Alex Murdaugh. I think I watched a Hulu or an HBO.
Yeah, the Hulu was like Low Country Dynasty or something like that.
That's the one I watched. I watched that one. He was basically, his family basically ran the town, ran the local area. There had not been a change of venue. So I figured that there were going to be a lot of locals who were going to find him sympathetic. Also, the murder weapons were never found. And when you really think about it, and this is just my personal take, I think that the motive of he had recently been discovered being a drug addict and stealing money from his clients, that he was going to shoot his wife and son to death as a way to drum up sympathy for him. It just did not really, it rang slightly hollow with me. I'm not following that logic. And obviously, if he truly was addicted to opioids, his brain wasn't working at, full capacity or whatnot. But it just seemed somewhat odd. Hey, wait a second. They're about to find me, on 800 charges of financial, impropriety. I'm just going to kill both my wife and my son using two different weapons.
Right.
And it felt like a stretch to me. Don't get me wrong; I think he did it, but I felt like the motive they had for him was rather weak, and just felt that the jury was going to sit there and either come back a hung jury or say not guilty for a variety of just reasons. They did not find what's the finger residue when you
The gunpowder residue.
Yeah, they didn't find that on him. So I just felt like there was and at the same time, I just felt he was flamingly guilty. Like
Now,
absolutely the guy was guilty, but I just didn't think that that they had proven it.
now let me ask you this, because this has kind of been going back and forth on some of the news shows. A lot of people feel that if he had not taken the stand in his own defense, he probably would have been found not guilty. What are your thoughts on that?
I was shocked. I even remember I reached out to you via text, and I think I might have called you. I think I tried to FaceTime you when I found out that he was no. I FaceTimed you when he was found guilty, and you didn't take my call. But that's neither here nor there. I was shocked that he would take the stand. It is widely best practice in the defense world to never let your client on the stand, because the second they take the stand, they are now subjecting themselves to prosecution questioning, and that's usually where people are found guilty, is their inability to handle the questioning from a prosecutor. It certainly didn't help his case.
No, I think.
What were your thoughts?
To your point, I felt that there was a very strong possibility that, like you said, there was either going to be a mistrial because it was a hung jury, or they were going to find him not guilty because, they were able to, again, they provided some very compelling evidence, but they were never really able to give a strong motive as to why.
Right.
But I felt he did so poorly on the stand, and they were able to really drill into him having to admit that he lied to police during the initial part of the investigation. And he had to admit to, a lot of his financial crimes. He had to admit to a lot of things that made him look very, very bad, which again, it's not like they hadn't presented that information, but when you as a suspect are on the stand having to answer those questions repeatedly, and the jury has to hear from your own mouth kind of what a horrible, shitty individual you are, then it probably makes it an easier leap for these folks to say, you know what? He probably did do all this stuff. Like this this is all very circumstantial, but in hearing his own words and hearing his personality, it's not a leap to picture him killing these two individuals. And to your point, I believe he did it also. If he didn't do it, if he did not do it, he is still involved in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I think that the what I found very compelling and a little nerve-wracking in terms of the prosecutor's evidence in this trial was the analysis of the cell phones that were Alex's phone, Maggie's phone, and Paul, his son, the three people who were in the dog kennel at Moselle, their one of their properties that they had. But basically, it was, down to the second, they were talking about, the prosecutors were able to pinpoint where people were on the property down by the second, at the same time talking about battery strength. So it's very clear, having the amount of data that is stored in these cell phones, that they were able to say that at 4%, Paul sent a Snapchat, video, and then it was down to 2% when he made his last text message. Like, just the fact that they were able, they didn't have video, This wasn't, they didn't have video. This wasn't a CSI where, they had some like crazy, scientific evidence of guilt. But the very fact that, it was, they were able to say that based on his testimony to the police or his, while he was being interviewed, when he said, "Oh, I went to go visit my mother for a half an hour, and then I came back." And the very fact that the police were able to say, "Well, actually, that's not true because your cell phone shows that you were at this location for between these minutes and these minutes. You then moved from here to there." And not even just you were, within this zip code or whatnot, but they were able to like pinpoint his location on the property.
Oh yeah.
Which I found somewhat scary. But I think the last nail in the coffin was the video that his son took in the kennel, which clearly showed his own voice, which showed the mother's voice, but there was a third voice that was heard in the background, and it was identified by multiple people as the voice of Alex Murdaugh. So up to that point, he had basically told everybody, I was at my mom's. I wasn't even here when this happened. I came back from visiting my mother and I found these dead bodies on the ground. Meanwhile, there was video proof that he was there.
Right.
And then it became the prosecutors who were able to ask the question of, so at this moment, T minus, a minute and a half before the murders, you're at the property, you are in close proximity to your son and your wife. Within those, next 60 seconds, how far did you travel to be far enough away that you didn't hear gunshots, you didn't hear gunfire, you didn't hear anybody scream, and somehow did not make it back to them in 8 minutes?
Yeah. His story just did not stand up. And again, he made himself look even worse. And he still faces additional court cases, over 100 indictments, over 100 charges across 19 different indictments for his financial crimes, facing another 700 years in prison if convicted of all those. You have to imagine he'll appeal this, but at some point, he's not going to be able to defend himself. Like I'm sure the cost of this trial was fairly substantial. And then, whatever of his assets will start to be seized as these financial crimes, and civil cases start going against him.
And let's not forget, this is the same guy that hired a local meth head to shoot him in the head to ensure that his son got the insurance money, and then that son somehow gives testimony in his defense. I found that shocking too.
I mean, Buster, I guess Buster believes his father when his father said he wasn't involved.
Well, it's a little rough, man. Somebody killed your mom. Somebody killed your brother. The brother seemed like a dick. Excuse my language.
Right.
I don't know that the world is really mourning the loss of Paul Murdaugh, but Maggie seemed all right in my book.
Yeah, Maggie didn't have it coming. Paul, you could kind of argue that we're a little better off.
Well, Paul drove his, drunkenly drove his boat into a bridge overhang and killing one of his friends. So I'm going to say maybe Paul did have it coming.
Maybe so. Moving on, we have two stories of GOP politicians pushing drag bans that had photos pop up in their history showing them wearing drag. First, going to Tennessee, where Governor Bill Lee, I believe, has already signed this law planning to criminalize such behavior. The bill amends the state law against obscenity and pornography to include certain adult cabaret performances. Well, then, of course, people do love to share things from people's history. This is a photo of Governor Lee allegedly wearing a short skirt, tight sweater, and long beaded necklace in a photo that later appeared in the 1977 Franklin High School yearbook.
I don't listen. I mean, to sit there and try to say, hey, this guy dressed up as a woman, so therefore, he's a hypocrite for trying to ban drag performances in front of children. Um, it seems like a little bit of a stretch. I think that you're actually losing your argument in the sense of you should just be going after politicians who, despite the horrors that this world has to offer, are deciding that men that dress up as women is really the greatest struggle that we need to be focusing on.
Right. Then credit to the Tennessee Holler, one of the local media outlets
Holla!
that confronted Governor Lee and said, "Do you remember dressing in drag in 1977? Why is it only illegal when gay people do it?" And Governor Lee, shockingly, did not like that line of questioning.
Sure. I'm sure he was the only politician that was going after drag shows, correct?
Well, you would think so, but going down to Texas State Representative Nate Schatzline also is authoring a bill banning drag in Texas, and a video came up of him being featured in drag. Here is a photo of him. There was another photo of him showing the dress he was wearing, but it was very, very fuzzy. This was Living Blue Texas shared this video of him running around in drag, and yet he feels he should be able to dictate whether people can actually perform in drag or not.
Sure. Speaking of drag, and it's something you and I have spoken about personally, is the interview that the unfortunate, I think it was from a Republican state politician from Oklahoma, I believe it was.
Correct. Nathan Dahm appearing on the most recent The Problem with Jon Stewart. And again, you have to question if Nathan has ever watched anything Jon Stewart has done to be surprised. First off, if you will notice, and I didn't notice this in the photos before, he's got a little lapel pin, Nathan does, in the shape of the state of Oklahoma. That says America First.
Okay. But this is the thing about Jon Stewart, and I mean, it's the man comes prepared.
Oh, yeah.
He knows his stuff. This is a guy that has taken on Congress and gotten them to bend. I think, the efforts he has made with the 9/11 first responders in terms of the aid packages that Congress in 2002 said, absolutely, we're going to pay for these people's health care. And then, as much as the GOP likes to, bathe themselves in 9/11 nostalgia, the Republican congressmen, over the past few years have absolutely tried to chip away on those promises. And he basically has gone down to D.C. and given speeches, walked the halls, and was able to get the 9/11 first responder support passed.
Right.
He's a man of action. I think, one thing you can say, about yourself, you're a man of words. You sit in your sterile suburban Pennsylvania home, casting aspersions on those who are out there on the front line.
This time's gotta stop.
I believe Jon Stewart also working to help military people that suffering the medical effects of working around burn pits. But yeah, so this interview, part of the reason he talks to Nathan Dahm is Nathan, staunch Second Amendment supporter, but even to the point where he doesn't feel that you should have to register to own a gun. You should not have to go through a background check, even going as far as to say you don't even need proper training in handling a firearm. It's a good idea, but it shouldn't be required for you to be able to own a gun.
But we need to protect the children by banning drag shows in their presence.
Well, and that's where, that's, I think, one of my favorite parts of the interview is this guy is going on and saying, we really need to protect kids, and he's like, the government has a responsibility to protect children, and Jon Stewart's like, well, what's the number one cause of death for children in this
Children.
country? And the
And
guy's
I
like,
loved
well,
his
I guess
answer.
he's like, I guess you're going to say firearms. He's like, and John's like, it's not like it's an opinion, it's
Yeah.
the fact. More
Yeah.
than cancer, more than car accidents, more than any other disease out there. And John nailed it on the head. He's like, you don't give a flying fuck about kids.
And this guy had no answer.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it was almost and that the way this guy's brain is wired, he's not going to walk away and say, where are my priorities?
Right.
Where, how have I, how is it that I talk the talk, but my actions aren't in line with actually protecting children. This guy's going to walk in and be like, fucking asshole. How dare he talk to me that way? I'm a state legislature, and whatnot. It's gross. It's actually just gross human behavior at this point.
And the hope, and again, I don't think Jon Stewart goes in thinking that he's going to change the mind of an individual like this.
Sure.
But
sure.
I think the hope is that enough people see this and see the hypocrisy and realize the danger of supporting politicians such as this and the long-term ill effects that can happen from it. We saw it this week with a story out of South Carolina where a woman was arrested and charged after allegedly taking abortion pills to end her pregnancy in October of 2021. This is all blowback from Roe v. Wade being repealed.
Sure.
And this happened, again, this is October of 2021. So this is when Roe v. Wade was still legal, but now she's being charged because of it.
Correct. They're going back in time now, people. This is what happens when you have a religious fervor that is unchecked,
right?
Because we are living in a world where there is a collective fear of pushing back against the religious right. It's for some reason, as a society, we have ceded the high ground to the very vocal religious right, despite the fact that they are not a majority.
Right.
That we have allowed them to infiltrate every sector of our government, federal, state, local, judicial, executive. Oh, fuck. What's the third? Legislative?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
You nailed it.
And we just, and nobody's, and we're not going after them.
Right. And South Carolina, one of 3 states that criminalize this behavior, explicitly criminalize self-managed abortions.
Right.
But again, red state, we talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to divorce the red states from the blue. Fine with that. If this is how you're going to conduct yourself, I don't want my tax dollars helping a state like this. And shockingly enough, Brian, who do you think the enforcement of these laws impact in higher numbers than white people?
Hold on a second. I'm going to guess low-income women and minorities.
So Black, brown, indigenous, and other people of color are disproportionately criminalized for pregnancy outcomes for decades, but more so since Roe v. Wade was overturned.
Sure. And nobody cares. I mean, there are people that care, but the people that are in a position to do something about it seem afraid to take on the religious right.
And again, they're not that large of a group in this country. So it's unknown why they have this type power.
It's because they represent a voting bloc. And the fact is that when you ultimately look at it, the Republicans and the religious right play a very different game from the way it's played by the opposite side. The Democrats still feel, it's the liberals, however you want to, phrase it. They still feel that, that they are standing on the side of moral right, and that they won't sink to the levels of the other side. And the truth of the matter is, the religious right are sitting there saying, these are God laws that we are promoting, and we will do anything and everything to ensure that God's laws are respected.
Right.
And you have two sides that are playing by completely different rules. And for the perfect example, I will still say, is you've got the Supreme Court nomination of Merrick Garland by President Obama that was stymied because it was, quote unquote, a presidential election year by the Republicans, who were a minority in Congress at the time. And yet, fast forward 4 years later, you have the Republicans literally push through Amy Barrett through the Supreme Court nomination process, somehow accomplishing it in mere days,
Record time.
despite the fact that it was an election year. The hypocrisy, and when I say hypocrisy, I'm not saying it because I disagree with it. What I'm saying is that it is just so clear the rules they play, which is that we will do and say anything to get our way, which is when it's something that is against their favor, they have a much different stance than when it is something that is in their favor. And the Democrats and the liberals feel that if they stand up and point out this hypocrisy, it's going to change behavior in some way. Just like Jon Stewart's interview with this guy, it has been clearly shown over the past, a lot of people will say it's all Ronald Reagan's fault, but it is so clear over the past 20 some odd years. I really feel like it was accelerated under Newt Gingrich, where it's not about who you are or how you play or how you play the game. It is about whether you win or lose. And the Republicans and the religious right are winning, and the Democrats and the liberals are losing. And the fact is that the part that is just mind-boggling to me is that there is a large majority of Americans that want abortion in this country. And what you've watched is a steady stream over the past 8 months or so of states that are turning anti-abortion, not based on the actual numerical majority of that viewpoint, but because the people with the loudest voice are the ones that are being listened to despite their numbers.
And you look at, getting back to the abortion pills, now we're seeing that Walgreens, due to receiving a letter from nearly 24 Republican state attorney generals, have stated that they will not dispense abortion pills in several states where abortion is still legal,
Right.
because they are concerned about future lawsuits. They're concerned about activism, but
fuck Walgreens
Yeah,
and
basically.
boycott Walgreens. I am officially boycotting Walgreens. And I guess Dwayne Reed is part of them. So CVS, you're going to get all of my business until I hear that Walgreens is honoring what is law and not being fearful of empty threats.
Now, down in Florida, they actually did something to hopefully help children. They arrested a 72-year-old man last week after investigators found his home stashed with more than 220,000 printed images of child pornography, which investigators say weighed over a ton. The mugshot for this individual, who goes by the name of Paul Zettel of Ocala, Florida, looking pretty much how you would expect his mugshot to look. He faces 25 counts of possession of child pornography.
First off, Jesus Christ, this does look like the kind of man who would print up child porn.
Yeah.
He'd sit there and be like, you know what? I'm not okay with it sitting on my hard drive. I need to actually see this in paper. He looks like the kind of guy that you would warn your kids about if he were to leave his house.
Yeah, I mean that's something like you see him and you're like, yeah, stay away from that side of the street. Just stay away from the entire neighborhood.
Haunting. Those eyes are haunting.
All right, Brian, another fantastic show. Kudos to you, my friend. Your leadership has led to some of the greatest content, I feel, in our 247 episode history. But we are not done. If you are a Patreon subscriber, you've got a little more show coming this evening. If you're at the bronze level or higher, that's just $10 a month. You get to join our live After Dark starting in 20 minutes. Some of the stories too spicy for live podcasting, too spicy for YouTube, too spicy for Twitch. So if you haven't yet, go to ronandbrianpodcast.com. In the upper right-hand corner, click on Become a Patron. Join at the bronze level or higher. You get to join us live. Listen, if you just want to start off at the $5 level to check it out, you will get the audio of the After Dark sent to you tomorrow. But if you don't get enough Ron and Brian in this hour and 10 minutes that we do here, this is the best way, so you don't have to wait another week to get more of us. You can get more at the bottom of the hour.
Absolutely.
All right, Brian, anything additional before we wrap this one up?
No, I love you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you.
All right. I love you too, my friend. Looking forward to having you and your lady join us. In the meantime, Patreon folks, we will see you in 20 minutes. Everybody else, we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com. See you again next week.